core of what this Rolling Thunder thing is all about. And I don't have a clue, because it's about nothing. It's just something that happened 40 years ago.
For decades, Bob Dylan has stood as a towering figure in music, a poet, a rebel, and the voice of a generation. His influence has transcended genres and generations, inspiring countless artists to pick up a guitar or pen lyrics that speak truth to power. Yet, despite his legendary status, not every rock icon was eager to collaborate with him. One such icon was Mick Jagger, the electrifying frontman of the Rolling Stones, who recently revealed why rockers like himself hesitated to step into the studio with Dylan. What could keep two musical giants apart? Envy, fear, or something more complex? Dylan was no ordinary musician. By the mid-1960s, he had evolved from a folk-singing wanderer into a cultural force whose words pierced through the chaos of the era. Born Robert Allen Zimmerman on May 24, 1941, in Duluth, Minnesota, Dylan was raised in a modest Jewish household and found early comfort in the sounds of blues and country music on the radio. But everything changed when he picked up a guitar and began writing songs. By the time he reached New York's Greenwich Village in 1961, he had absorbed the raw spirit of the folk scene and turned it into a movement. With tracks like Blowin' in the Wind and The Times They Are A-Changin', Dylan didn't just document history, he shaped it. At the peak of his powers, every artist seemed to want to work with Dylan, except many in the rock world.
Why?
As Jagger would later admit, it was a mix of admiration, intimidation, and practical realities. Dylan's uncompromising vision and chaotic creative process made collaboration difficult. He was unpredictable, elusive, and uninterested in conforming to any structure, a challenge in an era where rock stars often clung to control. His recording sessions were legendary for their spontaneity, with Dylan sometimes barking vague, poetic instructions like, "Play it like it's raining," and expecting the band to translate that into sound. For someone like Jagger, who thrived on chemistry and control within the tightly wound structure of the Rolling Stones, such an approach posed a serious threat to their musical identity. Born on July 26, 1943, in Dartford, England, Jagger was cut from a different cloth. As the frontman of the Stones, formed in 1962 alongside Keith Richards, Brian Jones, and others, he embodied the grit and swagger of rock and roll. With hits like I Can't Get No Satisfaction and Paint It Black, the Stones became global icons, their music steeped in rebellion and attitude. Despite occupying the same musical era and having deep respect for Dylan's songwriting, Jagger and his bandmates kept their distance. The Beatles credited Dylan for deepening their songwriting. Jimi Hendrix transformed All Along the Watchtower into a rock masterpiece, and the Byrds built their folk rock sound on Dylan's foundation. Still, for the Stones, Dylan's unpredictability was too great a risk. Stories of his sudden shifts, like the infamous moment at the 1965 Newport Folk Festival when he plugged in an electric guitar without warning, reinforced the idea that Dylan couldn't be contained or predicted. To many, he was a genius. To others, an enigma. Collaborating with him meant stepping into a storm. His 1965 album Highway 61 Revisited saw him arrive at the studio with half-finished lyrics and vague ideas, which, while ultimately resulting in revolutionary tracks like a Rolling Stone, also pushed his fellow musicians to the edge. For a band like the Stones, whose identity was built on tight interplay between Jagger's vocals and Richards' riffs, this chaos posed a potential threat to their brand of controlled rock. Beyond personality clashes and creative style, there was also the matter of Dylan's stature. After surviving a near-fatal motorcycle accident in 1966, he withdrew from the public eye, further cementing his mythic status. His every move became a subject of analysis, and collaborating with him came with the risk of being overshadowed, an unthinkable scenario for self-made legends like Jagger. "We all loved Bob," Jagger once admitted, "but you didn't want to be the guy standing in his shadow." He had this way of making everything about him, even when he didn't mean to. Still, beneath the hesitation was deep admiration. Jagger never denied Dylan's influence on the Stones, and tracks like Street Fighting Man clearly echoed Dylan's knack for weaving poetry into protest. Despite never joining forces in the studio, the mutual respect between these titans of music remains undeniable, each carving out a legacy that forever changed the sound and spirit of rock. And Richards once called Dylan the real deal. Still, admiration didn't translate into partnership. Was the decision to steer clear personal, or was it about survival? The Rolling Stones had their kingdom, and Dylan had his. Crossing those borders, as Jagger would later reveal, was a gamble few were willing to take. By the 1970s, Bob Dylan's mystique had only deepened. After retreating from the public eye following his 1966 motorcycle crash, he re-emerged with a new sound, grittier, more introspective, and often cloaked in ambiguity. Albums like John Wesley Harding and Nashville Skyline revealed a softer, more country-tinged side of Dylan. Yet even as he reinvented himself, Dylan remained a figure apart, a chameleon who defied expectations. For Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones, who were then riding high on masterpieces like Sticky Fingers and Exile on Main Street, Dylan's unpredictability was both alluring and dangerous. Jagger's insights into why rockers kept their distance didn't come from idle speculation, they were forged in real encounters. One such moment came in 1972. The Stones were in New York, fresh off a triumphant U.S. tour, when word spread that Dylan, then living quietly upstate, had made a rare appearance in the city. He dropped by a late-night jam session at a downtown club, guitar in hand, ready to play. Jagger was there, along with a handful of other rock luminaries. What could have been a historic collaboration turned into a telling standoff. He started playing something, and we all just watched, Jagger later recounted. Nobody knew where he was going with it. Half the room thought it was brilliant. The other half was lost. I didn't jump in, didn't feel right. That night wasn't about ego, Jagger insisted. It was about rhythm. The Stones thrived on groove, a tight-knit synergy that fueled their explosive live shows. Dylan, however, operated on a different wavelength. His tempo shifted mid-song, his lyrics veered into cryptic tangents, and his band, when he had one, was expected to follow blindly. Another reason the rockers were hesitant to work with Dylan was his reputation as a studio wild card. In 1975, during the recording of Blood on the Tracks, even seasoned professionals were baffled by Dylan's process. He'd rewrite lyrics on the spot, scrap takes others thought were perfect, and switch musicians without warning. Guitarist Kevin Odegaard, who played on the sessions, recalled Dylan tossing out a finished track because it didn't feel right in the air. The album would become a classic, but the chaotic process left many collaborators shell-shocked. Jagger, who oversaw the Stones' meticulous production on albums like Goat's Head Soup, saw this as a red flag. We'd spend days getting a sound just so, he noted. Bob could tear it all down in a minute. That's not how we worked. Still, there were moments when their paths nearly aligned. In 1985, the music world was buzzing with Live Aid, the global benefit concert spearheaded by Bob Geldof. Both Jagger and Dylan were on the lineup, raising hopes for a joint performance. Backstage in Philadelphia, they crossed paths, Jagger strutting in a neon jacket, Dylan in a leather vest, looking like he'd wandered in from another decade. Fans dreamed of a duet, but it never happened. Instead, Dylan took the stage with Keith Richards and Ron Wood, delivering a sloppy rendition of Blowin' in the Wind that left critics unimpressed. Jagger, watching from the wings, chose to perform solo with Tina Turner instead. The Live Aid fiasco underscored another sticking point, Dylan's live unpredictability. He would change keys without warning, skip verses, or stretch songs into marathon jams. For a frontman like Jagger, who commanded audiences with choreographed precision, it was a gamble not worth taking. "You've got to know your partner's next move," he once explained. Beyond the stage, another divide loomed, image. The Stones had built a bad boy reputation, all leather, danger, and decadence. Dylan, by contrast, projected a cerebral, almost ascetic persona. A collaboration risked blurring those carefully cultivated identities. In 1986, when Dylan began quietly forming what would become the Traveling Wilburys, he reached out informally to several rockers, including Jagger. George Harrison, Tom Petty, and Roy Orbison signed on. Jagger declined. "It wasn't my scene," he later said. "Bob's got his crew. I've got mine. Mixing it up didn't fit." The Wilburys thrived, but Jagger saw no place for his swagger in Dylan's quirky supergroup. The 1990s and 2000s only widened the gap. Dylan embraced his never-ending tour, a relentless lo-fi odyssey that kept him on the road in smaller venues. The Stones, on the other hand, leaned into mega-productions, massive tours with giant screens, fireworks, and stadium-sized swagger. Think Bridges to Babylon with its massive visuals and pyrotechnics. Their paths diverged, but Jagger never stopped keeping tabs on Dylan. Today, Mick Jagger and Bob Dylan stand as living monuments to rock's golden age, each thriving in his own orbit. Their paths remain distinct but forever intertwined by history. At 81, Jagger is still a force of nature, his energy defying time, keeping the Rolling Stones a global powerhouse. Dylan, now 83, is no less active. His voice is a gravelly growl, but his lyrics remain razor-sharp, etching out a late-career renaissance few could have predicted. Did their decision not to collaborate cost either of them anything? That's a question fans still ponder. But whether the idea of a joint album is a missed opportunity or a wise avoidance, one thing is certain. The legends they built on their own terms. Current trajectories reveal why Mick Jagger's caution, and that of other rockers, about collaborating with Bob Dylan has persisted, even as both men have cemented their legacies in the twilight of their lives. In 2025, Jagger is still a whirlwind of motion. The Rolling Stones, fresh off their successful 2024 Hackney Diamonds tour, are once again packing arenas worldwide with a setlist that seamlessly blends classics like Gimme Shelter with new cuts pulsing with raw energy. Hackney Diamonds, their first album of original material since 2005, hit the charts hard, peaking at #1 in the UK and earning Grammy buzz for its lead single, Angry. Critics continue to marvel at Jagger's stamina. His hips still swivel, his voice slices through the mix, and his command of the stage remains undeniable. "I'm not slowing down," he told a roaring crowd in Los Angeles last month, flashing that iconic grin. Off-stage, Jagger is dabbling in production, mentoring younger acts, and even teasing a solo EP, proving he's still as restless and driven as ever. The Stones operate like a well-oiled machine, a testament to Jagger's lifelong talent for steering the band through chaos. Keith Richards, now 81, remains his gritty foil, their chemistry as potent as it was in the 60s. Ronnie Wood, still referred to as the new guy at 77, rounds out the trio, their live shows delivering masterclasses in rock endurance. Yet this sustained success underscores why Jagger never gambled on a Dylan collaboration. Dylan, meanwhile, thrives in his own way, one that completely defies rock and roll conventions. His legendary never-ending tour, which began in 1988, shows no signs of stopping, with 2025 dates already locked in across Europe and North America. His 2020 album, Rough and Rowdy Ways, continues to resonate, with sprawling, dark tracks like Murder Most Foul, earning acclaim as some of his best work in decades. Off the road, Dylan's creative fire still burns bright. He's returned to painting, with his abstract works fetching high prices at galleries, and his 2022 book, The Philosophy of Modern Song, remains a bestseller, offering his idiosyncratic takes on artists from Elvis to The Clash. Their health battles only add to their legend. Jagger's 2019 heart valve surgery could have ended his performing career, but he bounced back with a vengeance, hitting the gym and the stage within months. Dylan, too, has weathered countless storms. Though rumors of frailty have trailed him since the 2000s, his relentless touring proves he's tougher than he looks. In 2024, he shrugged off a bout of pneumonia with a simple message, "I'll be there." Both men defy the odds, though in contrasting ways. Jagger's triumphs are loud and public, while Dylan's victories are quiet and defiant. Jagger's old reluctance to work with Dylan now seems almost prophetic. In 2025, the Stones shows are grand spectacles, giant screens, pyrotechnics, and surprise guests like Lady Gaga joining them on Sweet Sounds of Heaven. Dylan's gigs, by contrast, are minimalist and almost monastic. Just him and a small band, no frills, no flash. A collaboration now would feel like a clash of empires, Jagger's high-octane showmanship versus Dylan's brooding introspection. Still, a thaw seems to be occurring. At a 2023 benefit concert in New York, the two legends shared a backstage laugh. Jagger praised Dylan's latest record, while Dylan nodded in appreciation of the Stones' staying power. No jam session followed, but the brief exchange hinted at a mutual respect that's been hardened by time. Their legacies ripple far beyond their own efforts. Jagger's influence echoes in acts like the Killers and Arctic Monkeys, who've borrowed his iconic strut and sneer. Dylan's shadow looms over modern songwriters like Phoebe Bridgers and Father John Misty, who chase his poetic depth. The Stones' catalog still streams in the billions, with I Can't Get No Satisfaction remaining a cultural touchstone. Meanwhile, Dylan's Nobel Prize in Literature, 2016, and Oscar for Things Have Changed, 2001, solidify his unique standing in the pantheon of artists. Neither man needed the other to shine, and that's a truth Jagger seemed to grasp early. A collaboration might have diluted their iconic brands rather than enhanced them. In the digital age, their presence continues to evolve. Jagger's social media lights up with tour updates and behind-the-scenes peeks that keep fans hooked. Dylan, true to form, remains enigmatic. His rare tweets, often just cryptic lyrics or tour dates, spark frantic analysis. A January 2025 post from Dylan reading, "The past is a bucket of ashes," sent followers into a frenzy, while Jagger's straightforward, "See you in Berlin," drew thousands of likes. Their decision to avoid collaboration hasn't hurt either legacy. The rockers who once steered clear of Dylan's unpredictable orbit went on to build towering kingdoms of their own. Now, as the curtains slowly begin to draw on their time in the spotlight, those kingdoms stand tall, separate but equal, their rulers still reigning supreme. What do you think of the rockers' decision to stay apart creatively? Did it help them evolve individually, or keep them from reaching even greater heights together? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the next video on your screen. You won't want to miss it.